To start with, I'm going to tell you the story of the flaming chalice. The way I'm going to tell it to you was written by Noreen Kimball. Many Unitarian Universalist churches and fellowships start their worship service on Sunday mornings by lighting a chalice, just like us. This flaming chalice is a symbol for Unitarian Universalists, just as the cross and the Star of David are symbols for Christians or Jews. The story of how the flaming chalice became our symbol begins in the Second World War. During that war, a lot of people living in Eastern Europe, Unitarians, Jews, and others, were in danger of being put in prison or killed by Nazi soldiers. A group of Unitarians came together in Boston, Massachusetts, and formed the Unitarian Service Committee, and their plan was to help the people who were in danger from the Nazis. The director of the Service Committee was the Unitarian minister Charles Joy. Reverend Joy had this office in Portugal so that he would be close to the people he was trying to help. He was in charge of a whole secret group of agents and messengers who worked hard trying to find safe routes for people to escape. Reverend Joy and his assistants often needed to ask governments and other organizations for their help to save people who were in danger. They would send messages to anyone in government who might give them money or transportation or a safe route. Because they were a new organization, though, not many folks had heard of them, and this made it harder for Reverend Joy and the people in the USC, the Unitarian Service Committee, to get the help they needed. In those days during the war, when danger was everywhere, lots of people were running away from their own countries. Often people who were escaping and people who wanted to help did not even speak the same language. Reverend Joy decided it would be much better if the service committee had an official symbol, a picture, to help identify its members. With a picture or a symbol, it wouldn't matter if people couldn't read the language. And it looked like the Reverend Joy would need to find an artist. He went to a talented man named Hans Deutsch for help. Deutsch had escaped from the Nazis in Paris, where he was in danger because he drew cartoons showing people how evil the Nazis were. Reverend Joy asked Deutsch to create a symbol in print to be printed on service committee papers to make them look important. He wanted the symbol to impress governments and police who had the power to help move people to safety. For his drawing, Deutsch borrowed an old symbol of strength and freedom from Czechoslovakia at the time, a chalice with the flame. Reverend Joy wrote to his friends in Boston that the new symbol seemed to show the real spirit of the Unitarian religion. It showed a chalice, or cup, that was used for giving a healing drink to others. And it showed a flame on top of the chalice because a flame is often used to represent a spirit of helpfulness and sacrifice. And so the flaming chalice became the official symbol of the Unitarian Service Committee. Many years later, the flaming chalice became the symbol of Unitarian Universalist groups all over the world. By the early 1970s, enough UUs had heard the story of the flaming chalice symbol that they began to light their own flaming chalices as part of the worship service. Over the years, this practice has spread over most of the United States and Canada and beyond. What does it mean to have a symbol like this? Well, one thing it means is that wherever you see a flaming chalice, you know that there are Unitarians and Universalists nearby. Having a symbol can also remind you of what's most important to you. And sometimes a reminder can make a big difference. One very old woman told how the flaming chalice of her homeland, Czechoslovakia, helped while she was in a Nazi prison camp. Printed under the picture of the Czech flaming chalice was the motto, Pravda vítězí, which means in English, truth overcomes, or truth prevails. Every single morning in the camp, the woman, a girl at the time, traced a picture of the flaming chalice in the sand with her finger. Then she wrote Pravda Vitesi underneath it. It gave me the strength to live each day, she said. Whenever she drew the chalice in the dirt, she was reminded that someday the world would remember the important truth that every human is important and should be free to think and believe as they choose. When we see people light the chalice at the beginning of our service every Sunday, we enjoy it because it's a beautiful thing to do. But we can also, now that you know it, remember the story of the flaming chalice and the strength it has given people for hundreds of years. We use it to let others know that Unitarian Universalists believe in helping others. The end of that part. But it's my beginning, right after I take a little drink of water. The story of the flaming chalice is a great example of Unitarian Universalist values and traits. Unitarians were doing this incredibly dangerous and incredibly holy work. And also, we just need something to put on paper. We've got to look official so we can work better and faster at this very dangerous and holy task. Well, what does it mean to have a cup as a symbol? It's older than written history. The cup or the chalice represents hospitality, the conscious choice to make ourselves vulnerable in the service of curiosity and kindness. It reminds us to invite the stranger in, to share our resources, scarce or abundant, with any who stand at our gate. The offering of the cup is an act of intentional exposure, and it's recognized as sacred across all human boundaries of time and space and culture. In much of the Asian world, the offering and ritual of the tea service is an expression of this kind of hospitality. Some indigenous American tribes shared not only food and drink with strangers, but the smoking of a pipe, a literal cup of fire. The offering of the guest bowl, filled with wine or spirits or whatever is available, pervades Norse, Greek, Italian, Spanish, and German legends and tales. In Africa, hospitality is taken very seriously, and the coming of visitors is not only tolerated, but welcomed extravagantly. The more visitors, the better. No notice necessary. I mean, please give me notice, but why not? In the Rift Valley of Kenya, the Kipsigi people say that visitors are like rain, an unlooked for blessing. And can I just say, our little miracle today, thank you. In the heritage of our own Unitarian Universalism, the cup is understood through the lens of communion. For believers in transubstantiation, the literal transformation of bread and wine into the body and blood, the Holy Grail, that chalice, symbolizes the perfect union of Christ with his apostles and of God with God's people. The idea of the lost grail is also compelling. Tales of the Holy Grail gained power in early medieval times, maybe as a response to the plagues sweeping across Europe, and they didn't lose any of their glamour over the next centuries. Well before Luther even came along, the Catholic Church recognized its own mundanity and profanity, the imperfect communion of church with community, with individual. And to seek out and claim the cup of Jesus' first communion supper would surely not only heal all the ills of the human body and mind, but heal the broken church and its relationships with and without its walls. For those who experience communion as a remembrance of Christ, or again as an expression of radical hospitality, the chalice holds hopes and dreams far beyond that sip of wine or grape juice. Modern Christians have embraced the cup and its companion table as symbols of welcome, and in progressive churches, symbols of affirmation. In other churches, the cup can be a symbol of exclusion and denial. The other aspect of our Unitarian Universalist symbol is fire. This cup of fire, this flaming chalice. In our chalice lighting, we say, we light this chalice and we make that motion. I have a children's version, which we do the hand motions. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. So I wonder sometimes now when I think about this motion, does anyone under the age of like 40 know what this is? Should I just get out the lighter? Our hymns and our readings are filled with references to light and to fire, to the light of truth, the light of reason, the light of compassion. We sometimes extinguish our chalice, well, every time, with these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. To recognize the sanctity of fire is to recognize the sanctity of divine madness. Prometheus stole fire from the gods and was punished for it. Humans who are dangerously ambitious and recklessly inventive have reaped the benefit of our stolen element for millennia, and we've also paid its toll. Fire is humanity's greatest and original servant, and it is also our most dangerous companion. Fire controlled can take us to the outer reaches of the solar system. Fire controlled, uncontrolled, can turn us and everything we love to ash. Fire is not some saccharine sweet symbol. It is the passion that we invoke as we do the dangerous, difficult, and sacred work of justice. I've got a fire in my belly. It's the peril we recognize too. I looked for help, but I got burned. So what does it mean to adopt flame as a sacred symbol of our faith? Is it arrogance? Is it humility to try to hold such a mercurial element in the cup of our understanding, in the cup of hospitality? Fire is part of hospitality. We welcome the traveler to our hearth and give them the best seat, the one closest to the fire. But fire is unpredictable, and it can control and guide us as much as we control and guide it. Maybe that's its fascination. But what does it all mean? What does it mean to have a chalice as a symbol and fire in its cup? Well, it means nothing or everything or something in between. One of the things that does seem to set humans aside from other critters on this earth that we know of is that we have this instinct for the sacred. I'm not saying that other animals don't have it. I'm saying that I can't see it in them, and so I celebrate it in us. Humans not only recognize holiness, we seek it out, and we strain endlessly to create and to recreate it. Hospitality is deeply rooted within this instinct, and the cup or the chalice holds not only the wine, the water, the fire, but a whole host of unseen and sometimes unspoken understandings, connotations, and cultural meanings. The seductive power of fire, deliciously warm, capricious, dangerous, is also deeply rooted within this call to holiness. Our instinct for sanctity, our recognition of holiness, these are at the root of our meaning making. It's the instinct that tells us hospitality and vulnerability and curiosity about other humans and the world are sacred. It's the instinct that recognizes the divine potential of fire and passion for destruction and for creation. The Reverend Charles Joy and his co-workers in that urgent sacred work of saving human bodies and souls probably didn't have as much time to think about what it meant to adopt this ancient Eastern European symbol as our own. And we don't often think about it too deeply either, and that is okay. We have other things to think about and other urgent sacred work to do. But we do have time once a week to come together and to breathe together. Once a week we stop whatever we're doing and we light this chalice We have time to commit to being a part of this church, a church of open minds, helping hands, and loving hearts. We have time to look into the flame and know its terrible and beautiful power. We have time to cup our hands and recreate the cup of fire, recognizing our call to welcome this traveler and the stranger, the refugee and the seeker. So, when we extinguish our chalice today at the end of the service, remember it is only a symbolic emptying of our cup of fire, because we will carry it with us from this place. In our hearts, the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. We will carry them out into the world, and then next week we will bring them back again and again, coming together, carrying the flame out, coming together. The chalice and the flame have only the meaning that we give them. But oh, what a meaning that could be. The fire within my heart recognizes the fire within yours. Namaste. Amen. And blessed be.